haven't had an eczema flare in a decade now.
Wow.
And that's why, like, I chose chronic inflammatory skin conditions to focus on for my online coaching, because I lived with the demolishing self-worth.
Welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered, where we ditch the one-size-fits-all advice. I'm Lindsie, nurse turned health coach, author of Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, and mindful eating advocate. Here, we go beyond that diagnosis so you can start understanding the messages behind your symptoms. Before we get into today's guest, I wanted to let you know that I'm looking for 10 ladies to help me up-level my offerings so I can better serve you and get you the results that you desire. Be sure to check the show notes for the link to book a call with me, a quick call, and grab your freebie. So today, my guest is Sabrina Hall, and Sabrina is a holistic health coach and alternative healthcare practitioner with advanced training in biology and natural healing modalities. Through her work as a lymphatic drainage therapist, reflexologist, and Reiki master teacher, she helps women address the root causes of chronic conditions by supporting the body, nervous system, and emotional health. Inspired by her own journey with autoimmune and inflammatory conditions, Sabrina developed a whole systems approach to healing and now guides women in overcoming chronic skin issues through her eczema and psoriasis recovery system. As a reminder, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Now, get cozy, maybe get ready to take some notes, and let's dive in. Here is my conversation with Sabrina Hall. Hello, welcome back to the show, and welcome to Sabrina. We aligned.
Having me.
You're welcome. We aligned, I think, so much, just our messaging across the board. And now at this point, I've done a few kind of more dedicated episodes about nervous system regulation, but I still can't stress it enough. And everybody's story is so different, and you all have a different way of approaching it. So I think that's also what people need to hear. So starting off, you have your own, journey, your own healing journey that's also kind of led you to where you are now. So can you share, where you were, what happened, all that stuff, and then maybe even like what was kind of the big turning point throughout that journey? The
Sounds
big like
good.
wake up call. Yeah.
Definitely do that. And like you said, I believe so much that each of us is our individual story, right? And like having that opportunity to hear a similarity or have some commonality with someone can be enough of like a little trigger or a light bulb moment for just one or two people out there that is enough for them to be like, whoa, I don't have to stay stuck where I am. This isn't a lifetime of misery and suffering for me, kind of thing. So my story started long ago when I was 9 years old, and probably even before that. I attended the National Ballet School of Canada in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I lived there for 4 years. So I was launched into this like super intensive environment where we would go to schools through the day. We'd have multiple dance classes, and I lived there for 4 years, and I would go home for one day on the weekend. And so I was immediately launched into this: mature very quickly, be very independent, make all of your own decisions, be very, very disciplined, believe that there's such a thing as perfection. And so after 4 years there, I said to my parents, I'm done. I want to feel what it's like to be a normal kid and go to high school. And the school let me go for a year and set me up at another dance school that had been approved by them in case I wanted to go back. And I didn't. I never went back. because I really enjoyed the less stress, right? I didn't know if I wanted to be a dancer for my whole entire life, especially at 9. And so, yeah, but all of that really translated into shaping me. I very much was a performer. I would put the mask on for whatever circumstance I was presented with. Everybody always would comment that you're so self-assured, you're like confident, all of this sort of things. And it's like, well, I know how to perform. I know what people are expecting to see, and I can put that mask on regardless of what I'm feeling underneath it all. And so by my late teens, early 20s, my digestive system was a mess, and I had eczema in all sorts of different places all over my body, mostly my hands. My hands were chronically entirely covered. And that has another story associated with it. But, and then I would get patches around my eyes, mostly on my eyelids and underneath my eyes in that sensitive skin there, in my armpits, in my elbow crooks, ever since I was a child kind of thing with the eczema. And my digestive system was like IBS for so many years, right? Which is that blanket, we don't know why you're so sensitive and why you're you have diarrhea all the time kind of thing. Can't eat anything without knowing where a bathroom is. And then diagnosed way later with celiac. So, but I was, doing my bachelor's degree and then my master's degree and, getting married young with my partner who I love, who I'm still with, and he's an amazing rock for me. Having kids, puppies, all the things, career, this, that. And my body had gone from whispering, little whispers, nudges at me, right? Of hey, I want to draw your attention to something, something isn't right here, to then screaming at me. By the time I was, 25, I was dealing with fibrocystic breast disease, IBS, that's the celiac thing, eczema still all over, lymphatic congestion all down my left side, and chronic yeast infections, all of it. My entire system was thrown way off. I went through about a 10-year period where I only got a period every 60 days. And so my naturopath was maybe just ovulating from one ovary, don't expect to have an easy time having kids, just as a heads up thing, which luckily I didn't have any trouble with. But it was all of these things were pointing towards your system is completely messed up, and my hormones were out of whack. Everything was out of whack because of that stress response, right? That we can talk about too. And so for me, the aha moment was, I was crashing and burning. I was on the verge of a mental breakdown, and I was on a board of directors as well at that time for a school that was going bankrupt, and everyone on the board left me alone. And so I was dealing with lawyers and all sorts of things on top of everything else. And I went to my naturopath for just a regularly scheduled appointment. And she said, "Sabrina, how are you?" And I broke. The wall just came down, and I cried for a whole hour, sobbed. And she, by the end of it, was like, "Why do you feel like you have to be everything to everyone except yourself?" And those words stuck with me, and I'm getting emotional because they meant so much for me. They really turned my whole way of viewing things around. I already had the biology focus, right? And very much anatomy, physiology, all of it. I kind of knew inside out, was fascinated by it, but it also meant that I overcomplicated everything. And I was treating myself like a problem to fix. And I was telling you before we got on here, I was listening to your podcast about your book. And I would say to everybody, go read it, because it's so foundational to realize that your body is just speaking to you, and it's only doing the best that it can with what we give it, right? And how we choose to listen to it, if we listen to it at all. So changing your mindset around you are a problem to fix is huge. That alone can set you down a completely different path towards healing yourself of so many different conditions that we are told and led to believe are just deal with it. It's genetic. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. Like, I literally, after many years of healing now, and attention to all of those details within myself, a lot of self-love, a lot of self-care. Now I can say I'm celiac because it's genetic. And I think there is a component of some things that we can't necessarily heal. Mm-hmm. And I've almost got my fibrocystic under control, but everything else is gone. Like everything else. I haven't had an eczema flare in a decade now. Wow. And that's why, like, I chose chronic inflammatory skin conditions to focus on for my online coaching, because I lived with the demolishing self-worth and self-identity that comes with having a visible skin condition that people always can see and always comment on and always ask how you're doing and if there's anything that they can do to help. So,
yeah. And I feel like the skin conditions, I mean, I've again talked about it many, many times before. If anybody's listening has listened to like every single episode, they've heard this, but the skin, you know, can often be the first signal that something is going on. Yes. But we don't recognize that. We go to the dermatologist and they prescribe a cream or whatever, you know, to try to suppress it. And then it hits the more internal side eventually when, you know, in fact, it's really our body's way of saying, hey, something's really going on here. Like you said, maybe more at that point. But yeah. And I don't remember if we talked about it when we first talked, but it's interesting. So I was listening to something and they had mentioned that with celiac disease, you can like lose your cycle for longer periods of time, you know, in earlier years. And I lost mine for like, I don't know if it was a full year, but it was probably 9, 10, like I said, maybe up to a year, you know, 9, 10 months. And it was when I was in high school, and, you know, looking back again, it was like one of those things, like, was this now knowing what I know, but you know, at the time it was like, well, we'll just keep an eye on it. Probably fine. You know, that's normal, which I'm sure you probably, you know, experienced a lot too, but apparently there is a tie.
The athlete kind of, and all the performance, right? You know, like I didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Develop until I was probably 16, 17.
Yeah.
It was like way behind any of my sexual development. Yeah. Just intensive dance schedule too.
Yeah. That was probably part of mine too, because I had done gymnastics, I ran, I, you know, did cheerleading, like just super active. So
yes.
So, you know, as you mentioned, the body is a messenger. Again, like I love that. That's probably one of my biggest like overarching themes between the book, the podcast, just all the things I do. Because personally for me, you know, no matter what the diagnosis was, like that was a huge wake up call, I think, for women with PCOS. That's a big part of it as well, as listening to the body. And so, you know, so what were some of the things that you did when you finally, like, you know, realized like, hey, like, where did you start your journey? You know, when you finally realized your body was screaming at you?
Yeah. For many years, I was really convinced I had really disconnected from that like mind body kind of perspective, right? I was very much living in my masculine energy. I was like super, super A type, very, you know, like goals focused, task oriented, go all of the time. And so I had severely disconnected from my feminine energy body. And I also was like, everything's black and white science, right? Fact or not. And so I was convinced that it was something in my body that I had to fix. And so for me, because I had the digestive stuff and the skin stuff happening at the same time, I was like, well, it's my digestive system, right? Like I did all of this reading. And at one point, after all of the elimination diets, I did all of them. I did dairy, I did gluten, I did nightshades, oxalates, like I did high protein, mostly carnivore diet for a long time. Like I did all the things. And they were all so restrictive. And in my mind, it was making things way worse, like it would work for a tiny bit and then it would like severely go back in the other direction, right? Because it was just like, it was way too restrictive. And I did at one point, I was like, I was reading about the Candida connection with skin conditions and like IBS and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, if I do this Candida cleanse, then I'm going to be all set. Like this is totally my issue because I've had recurring yeast infections since I was a teenager too. And so I did this massive cleanse, and it was in between when I had been seeing my naturopath. So I did it for like 2-3 months, and it was like 6 different things in this protocol that I was taking throughout the day. And when I went in to see her and told her about it, and then how I was feeling, which was pretty devastated. And nothing was working properly in my digestive system at that point. She was like, you kind of dropped a bomb in your digestive system and we need to rebuild now. So I did all of the wrong things before actually it was a shift in my career that led me towards thinking about myself and my body differently and reconnecting with my energy and like my true self. So my husband and I decided, we've always been adventurers, and we decided to take a year and travel around North America in our camping trailer. We homeschooled the kids, had our dogs with us, and he knew he was going back to his job, and I got a leave of absence, but I didn't think I was going back to mine. And so I spent the year thinking about all the things that make me happy and the things that I'm super passionate about. And so I, like had this journal where I was like writing things down, music, scent, all of these things, right? And I literally came back, quit my job after 3 months, and enrolled to become an aromatherapist. And everybody was like, I'm sorry, what? You're like this scientist who is giving up a career with pension and benefits to become an aromatherapist? I was like, yes, I am. So yeah, I did that. And then I learned lymphatic massage and reflexology, and it all like snowballed from there. But then the real turning point for me was when I went for Reiki and started into understanding and working with subtle energy. And it really brought me inwards a lot. Reiki, for those who don't know, it is, it's a hands-on healing, like energy practice. But when you first get into Reiki, with Reiki level 1, it's only about self-healing. It's your own personal journey. And so you are like doing Reiki sessions on yourself, self-Reiki healing all the time for like a month straight. And then afterwards you maintain a bit of a practice, right? It's like yoga, meditation. You get deeper into something the more that you practice it. Mm-hmm. And so through that, I really started looking at some of my mindset things, the limiting beliefs that I had around food, around my health, around relationship with other people, right? And very much saw that I was a people-pleasing fixer. And I was constantly getting in my own way. getting in my own way of healing anything within myself. And that actually brings us back to the my eczema being predominantly on my hands and so bad on my hands, right? Because if you think about how we interact with the world, our hands are how we interact with the world. And they, for me, they were the sign of the constant doer, right? Instead of being this like self-reflective person that could just be and have these simple self-care practices, I was always getting, like, how can I help this person in my life? And what can I do to fix them? And, like super overcommitted and all of that. And turning the mirror in on myself through Reiki, through breath work and meditation practice was my real turning point for starting to make that connection, and then working in person with clients and seeing, like, whoa, all of these people. I predominantly work with women with lymphatic massage therapy and reflexology, and seeing over time that whatever they were presenting with, when I really got into talking with them, and allowing them to tell their story, people get really vulnerable when they're laying on a massage table and they don't have to do eye contact, and just like letting their stories come out, right? And seeing so many synchronicities and commonalities between us, between like their stress stories of their life when things kind of got rough for them, and then being locked into this like cycle and pattern of just like repetition and not being able to break out of it. But seeing that even just bringing some sense of peace and calm into their life for that hour and a half that I had them, and then repeatedly seeing them, every few weeks. After a year, that can be a different person, like when you find your people and you really connect with them and allow some of that vulnerability to come through and get real with yourself, just be honest about all of the things that you're thinking and struggling with, and that are on like loop repeat patterns in your head. Getting that stuff out can just be super liberating and really, really contribute to long-term healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's even something I talk about in the book too, is just, taking notes on, you can call it journaling, you can call it, like, for some people, like you mentioned, some of that stuff can just stress you out when you're doing all the diets and all this and that. And it's like, no, let's back up. Like, let's take a minute to just evaluate how you're really feeling and how you think things are affecting you.
Yeah. I
love what you mentioned about the physical presentation of symptoms, because I've talked about, I think I mentioned it with you the first time, but I've had a few other episodes, I've mentioned it and everything, but German new medicine, but whether you want to call it, that or whatever, but I think, yes, there is a tie to what's going on internally as to how these symptoms, are presenting. Is there anything that sticks out to you, like in any of your clients that you see as well? I think especially for women, for how these things are presenting, because that might be an aha moment for anybody listening even.
Yeah. I have a couple of clients inside my eczema and psoriasis recovery system right now who have facial eczema. So like their entire face and neck is really impacted. And I always talk about how, like with the eyes, if it's somewhere around the eyes, maybe look at what are you not seeing, or what are you not allowing to be seen of yourself. Some women are impacted by chronic ear eczema, like right down into the canal, so itchy, like I can't even imagine how terrible that would be. The inside of your throat ends up feeling so itchy because of the connection there. And you can't get it. You can't scratch it. But again, that would be like, what are you not hearing? What do you need to hear about whatever comes to you, right? Like if we sit quietly and listen to our intuitive selves, the answer will come. And, if you can get yourself into a nice space, do a little bit of deep breathing and just try to get into a little bit of that meditative state, right? Where you're maybe just focusing and concentrating on, like, what is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm not hearing? That sort of thing. One woman she's really just got eczema all on the back of her neck, right? And into her shoulders a little bit. And so with the shoulders, I talk about how, like, the shoulders are always what kind of responsibility are you carrying? Are you carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? Are you responsible for everything in your life? So look at responsibility there. And then the neck is our connection between our head and our bodies. And so it's a lot to do with like flexibility, but also intellect stuff. So sometimes if you predominantly have things affecting like your upper body, especially shoulders, neck upwards kind of thing, then that can be that you are spending way too much time in your ego side of yourself, like your intellectual side, as opposed to tapping into our intuitive kind of feminine nature side. And like flexibility in life, right, associated with the neck. So yeah, those are a couple of the interesting ones.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you pointed that out, because it makes sense when you say it, but a lot of people wouldn't automatically think about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Such a great conversation with Sabrina. I think very relatable, and I'll be sure to link everything in the show notes if you'd like to connect with her. In addition to how to book a quick call with me, so I can be sure that I am offering the programs and events that align with what you desire, along with the opportunity to grab my mindful eating guide. And if you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember that healing doesn't come from doing more, it comes from understanding better. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode of PCOS Unfiltered. Nourish, Heal, Thrive.